For most people, the Sega Dreamcast started life on 9/9/99, the North American release date, as synonymous with the console. But for me, it started a year before that. Across the street from my house in the Super Value, our local grocery store, I was running through the magazine aisle like I normally did, and right there in front of me was a magazine, I believe it was called Next. All I really remembered from it was there was a red controller with Sega Dreamcast plastered all over it. And to be honest with you, I wasn't excited, I wasn't thrilled, I wasn't enthusiastic. I was honestly feeling like I was being betrayed. See, I had picked up a Sega Saturn not even a year before that in October of '97. I might have had 5 games for the console. And here it was, a brand new Sega console. I know that people in the 90s understood this, but hell, I was not even 10 years old yet. I mean, it was the Genesis and it was the Saturn. And now this. To be honest with you, we were borderline poverty. I didn't buy magazines, I went over to the grocery store and read them. It'd be a year and a half almost before I actually got my Dreamcast. And it was my very first new console. It was mine. It wasn't used, it wasn't dirty, it was brand new out the box, shiny, and I loved it. I thought I would hate this console, but I loved it. I moved on from the Saturn. The very first game I got, the only game I got for Christmas that year, the only 2 things I got for Christmas period were my Sega Dreamcast and Sonic Adventure. And to be honest with you, I'm really not that big a Sonic fan, but I played the hell out of that game. And it's not the best memory of the Sega Dreamcast for me. To be honest with you, I spent a lot more time with the built-in demo, the Generator Volume 2. Dead or Alive, Fur Fighters, MDK2, those were the games that blew my mind. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, I loved it. I really didn't spend much time with Sonic. And as the next year would follow through, 2000, I would pick up a couple of more games. Dead or Alive, Resident Evil, Jet Grind Radio. I know, Europeans, everybody else, it's set, but guess what? We're Americans. Jet Grind Radio! It's just how it is. But following after that, the game that really got me involved with the Dreamcast, the one that made me absolutely fall in love with the console, and it's such a game that draws so many different opinions, it was Shenmue. Hell, you could have guessed that. I absolutely loved that game. It was the first true open world game I ever had. It was the first one I could fully explore. I could interact with everything. I could go up to vending machines and get Cokes, go over to the fortune teller to find out where the hell the sailors were. Why don't y'all people do that? Racing around in I loved it. So many memories with that game. But the truth is I was living in a house. I was 1,100 square feet with a built-in 3rd bedroom, if you can even call it that. We were borderline poverty. We didn't have anything. Almost every game I had up until that point was a used game I bought at a pawn shop that sold games at like $4 a piece. Gaming was my escape. The Dreamcast was my escape. Because besides being borderline poverty, my home was not a fun place to be. It was a war zone. Literally. And I can remember the Saturn and the Dreamcast being that escape. It was that way for me to get away from all the hell in my home. As time went on, I would move away from the Dreamcast. I went on to other consoles, the PS2, the Xbox 360, the PS3. But the thing is that everything that had created that hellscape in my home, I picked up every one of those traits. Truth is I had a collection of about 1,000 games once it was all said and done. Now don't ask me where I got that money for, statute of limitations and all that good jazz. But the truth is, and this is truly my story, so if I get choked up a bit. See, alcohol and drugs completely destroyed my life. It destroyed my gaming life. It took my collection from me twice. And when it was all said and done, it took my education, took my home, my relationship. It took everything besides the truck I had and the clothes on my back. That's where I was on January 3rd of 2010. A shell of who I was. And for the next 6 months, I scrapped together what money I could so I could try to escape my problems, not realizing I was the problem. And whenever I finally got enough money to make this 400-mile geographic change on a whim to a place I had only heard about, my mother called me. Of course, I went over there and I said my goodbyes and everything else, and she handed me a box. She told me I needed to take my TV. Still got the TV over there. Broken down Toshiba 20-inch flat screen. Doesn't even work right, but I still love it. And in that box was my original Dreamcast, my original controller, my original VMU, and about 6 or 7 games that I grew up loving. That was all that was left of my collection. That was it. And I took that with me. And while I tried to work through my problems, going to day laborers, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to stand in line for 4 hours, hoping I got the job. I tried. I had a lot of friends who I met over there, and the one thing that kept coming back is whenever I got off work, if I even had that job for the day, I would go home, turn on that TV, hear that fuzz, and I would play those games. Same games I'd been playing for 10 years already. See, for so many people, gaming is just this hobby. Gaming it's a kid's thing. Hell, there's people on YouTube who make videos about it all the time. But there's a lot of people just like me, and I'm sure many of you, who gaming impacted your life. It kept you going when nothing else would. It gave you that escape you needed to get away from the problems you could not handle at that moment. It gave you the ability to make it to the next day so that you could do better. See, while everybody else is talking about $99.99, today is the 20th anniversary of the Sega Dreamcast release. And to be honest with you, 20 years ago, I hated it. And today, I absolutely love that console. Not because it's the greatest console ever made, not because it's constantly got games put out for it even today. I love that console because of what it did for me, for the impact it had on me. Because 20 years ago, in Japan, there was a dream. And that dream saved a life. That's all I got. Happy birthday, Dreamcast.